The Prime Minister has announced a change in tariff policy towards the United States. Mark Carney says Canada will no longer tariff any U.S. products that comply with the Continental Trade Pact. His announcement comes less than a day after he and U.S. President Donald Trump held their first phone call in weeks. For his reaction, let's bring in former Conservative Party leader Erin O'Toole. He is the president of ADIT North America and also a distinguished fellow with the Hudson Institute. So, Mr. O'Toole, welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Good to be with you.
I'm hoping that you can bring us your reaction to all of this. Do you think that this is smart on the Prime Minister's part, or is this a concession?
I think it's smart, but it has two aspects to it, Hillary. First, it's a good sign that we're maybe getting into some serious, finally talking Turkey with the U.S. on reaching a final deal for those parts of our economy really impacted by the tariffs: steel, aluminum, auto, softwood lumber, that sort of thing. The second thing, and the Prime Minister's not going to say this, but I will say this, it's a recognition that the previous government, the Trudeau government, had made a mistake with the retaliatory tariffs, because the challenge with those, they feel good emotionally, but they actually hurt our manufacturers more and they complicate our supply chain. So he's quietly undoing one of the poor decisions of the previous government. It's also psychologically good because he will be then going into final stage negotiations with President Trump, not antagonizing with retaliatory, or some people call them revenge tariffs. Now we really need to talk Turkey. So I think it's good that he's kind of reset the tone with the president. The president seems to have respect for the Prime Minister. Now we need the Prime Minister to drive as good a deal as we can get for those sectors impacted.
And now that all of this has happened, of course, we do know that that phone call happened yesterday between the two leaders. It was perhaps a bit of a signal that they were still communicating that maybe something was going to come. Do you think that Canada's goals have now narrowed? And if so, what do you think those goals should be?
There's two key things. Like you asked your last guest, what would you whisper to the Prime Minister? Okay, I'm whispering to you, Prime Minister Carney, talk to the U.S. about energy and defense. We have energy, not just oil and gas, but great oil and gas that can be used in U.S. refineries. They get a bit of a discount because they're our really preferred customer for this stuff. But we also have critical minerals. We have uranium. We have a lot of ways that we can decarbonize the electricity grid. Our grid is connected to their grid, as we've seen 20 years ago when there was blackouts. The other thing is defense. President Trump wants to rebuild the shipbuilding industry in the United States. Well, he could partner with Canada because aluminum, steel from Canada, shipbuilding expertise like the Davie shipyard in Quebec, which is trying to buy a shipyard in Texas and builds icebreakers now. We should be working on this together as we make up a bit of a gap, not just in supply chain, but in skills. We actually have some of the most highly skilled shipbuilders now because we've been building ships in Halifax and at Seaspan in Vancouver. So talk defense, talk energy, drive a deal that will give the president some wins, but also give Canadians and national unity a win, because I do think we need to support our energy sector more than we have over the last decade.
Let's stay on this topic of defense since you have brought it up, because I would like to play a little bit of what we heard from the Prime Minister today and then get your reaction to it. Because even though the Prime Minister did mostly speak about trade, that was what a lot of the questions from reporters were about, he also spoke about Canada's role in what is being called this coalition of the willing against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So let's listen to this and then we'll get your reaction.
It means that there has to be security on the land, in the air, and in the sea. There's a role potential for the members of the coalition to provide support for all of those elements. We'll see what role Canada might play within that, within a broader group. And of course, there's an essential role of the United States as a backstop to whatever's provided through the coalition of the willing and by the Ukrainians.
So I know you were speaking, Mr. O'Toole, about some of this, the fact that we are, of course, so intertwined. But there's a lot to be dealing with here because you now have a trade war. You have a hot war in Europe as well. What are some of the challenges when it comes to dealing with both of these things for the government?
Well, the challenge right now is Prime Minister Carney has set some pretty ambitious agendas. You know, he wanted to reach 2% of of GDP for defense spending this year, and then go up to the 3.5 in the future, and 5% if you include infrastructure like ports and rail and things like this. Right now, we really don't even have the capacity to do that, Hillary. Our procurement systems are slow and broken. I used to advocate for 2% years ago, and people looked at me funny. It's like I've woken up from a fever dream, and now we're in a world of 3.5%. But we're going to have to support industry. I know there's opportunities for BDC to help some of the Canadian manufacturers and people in the defense and security industry scale up. We can then work with our European allies to help Ukraine. So we've already supplied armored vehicles. There's a great company in London, Ontario, ITPS, that is training Ukrainian pilots, fighter pilots in Canada. So between training, equipment, a range of things we're already doing, we can grow and meet our own NATO commitments here at home and be an important ally for Ukraine. And then hopefully, as part of this Rearm Europe program that Prime Minister Carney has signed us on to, I'd like to see us sell into our European allies, because all of these countries doubling their defense budgets, Hillary, that's opportunity for Canadian jobs, for Canadian innovation. So defense could be a bit of a kickstart for our economy at a time some of the industries impacted by tariffs are slow.
And of course, any moment now, we are anticipating that we'll hear from the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. We're watching for that. But in the meantime, what sort of approach do you think he needs to take? Because certainly something that we heard from political commentator Laurie Turnbull a little bit earlier on this afternoon was that in her view, he has quite a difficult task here as well in terms of the approach, the tone. What would you say?
Well, I think it'll be good to see Pierre back in the House. He's very strong in the House. And a good democracy means the Prime Minister needs to be held to account. Like today, this move he's made is secretly undoing mistakes the previous Liberal government has done. So if we were in the House of Commons today, you could praise those moves, but also say they never should have been made. I think Pierre has shown that he wants to work with the government. They passed Bill C-5, you know, the project bill, and working on lowering interprovincial trade barriers. There's a lot of areas where we can say, hey, this is an unusual time for Canada. It's all hands on deck to get our economy resilient enough to do things on our own. But there's also time to hold to account. Prime Minister Carney is passing the 100-day mark, lots of promises, lots of expectations. He'll be having a challenge delivering, and that's what a strong opposition needs to hold him to. Is he inspired Canadians in that election, given what's going on with Donald Trump. But the proof will be in the pudding. It's time to put his team on the ice. He likes hockey analogies, Hillary. It's time for him to put his team on the ice and score a few goals.
And just finally here, Mr. O'Toole, I think there's a lot of people who are understandably feeling a bit anxious, a little uncertain of what happens next. You, of course, held a very sort of privileged role. You might have a different perspective on this than some people. What would you say to Canadians right now about what the long-term outlook is for this relationship between Canada and the U.S.?
I would say to Canadians, remember how lucky we are to live in the greatest country in the world. You know, our friends to the south, our friends, and I call them our friends because they are a little more loud with their patriotism, but we have a soft confidence in this country that we can do incredible things. We have in the past. So my advice is we should be self-reliant on everything from masks and healthcare. As we saw in the pandemic, our neighbor wouldn't even share those with us. We can stand on our own on defense. We can patrol the most coastline in the world is Canadian coastline, 3 oceans. We should plan everything to be self-reliant. And then if things normalize in the U.S., that will be the gravy on top of the amazing plate we have in front of us. We are blessed as Canadians. It's a difficult time, but let's never lose sight of what we have and the great potential of our people. We're rich in food security, rich in energy security, rich in talent and technology innovation. Let's get some stuff done and stand on our own.
Erin O'Toole, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your time today, taking the time to come into our Ottawa studios. Thank you for all of that.
Good to be with you.
Erin O'Toole for us there in Ottawa.